Fisher. Fisher into Shaq. Just now lay it up and blow it. Get it back, slam it.
Oh, big fella, don't do him like that.
He owns a staggering 155 Five Guys restaurants, over 150 car washes, 40 24-hour fitness gyms, 17 Auntie Anne's, 9 Papa John's, and even a legendary Krispy Kreme. Shaquille O'Neal is more than a basketball icon. He's a business powerhouse. Today, Shaq's empire spans food, fitness, and franchises, pulling in millions beyond the court. But before the franchises, before the deals, before the multi-million-dollar fortune, there was just a boy from Newark, New Jersey, chasing a dream through hardship and hustle. This is the untold journey of how Shaquille O'Neal transformed from superstar athlete to unstoppable mogul, including how he became a millionaire at 20. Before we dive deeper into the rags to riches story, could you make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell? On this channel we bring you the most powerful rags to riches journeys, real stories of struggle, resilience, and triumph that you won't find anywhere else. Don't miss the next life-changing story. Subscribe now and let's continue.
When people think of Shaquille O'Neal, they imagine the towering 7'1" giant who dominated basketball courts, shattered backboards, and collected NBA championships like trophies. But behind the fame, the movies, and the commercials lies a story of discipline, vision, and financial genius that very few athletes in history can rival. Today, Shaq's empire stretches across hundreds of businesses, 155 Five Guys restaurants, 150 car washes, 40 24-hour fitness gyms, 17 Auntie Anne's pretzel shops, 9 Papa John's franchises, and even a Krispy Kreme donut store. The numbers are staggering. But before the multi-million-dollar endorsements, before the business empire, before the big Aristotle became one of the most recognizable celebrities in the world, there was just a boy born to a struggling mother, raised in military housing and driven by the fire to prove himself. Shaquille O'Neal's story begins far from the glitz of the NBA. He was born on March 6, 1972 in Newark, New Jersey, a place where poverty and crime often swallowed dreams before they had the chance to grow. His biological father struggled with addiction and was absent from his life. Instead, it was his stepfather, Philip Harrison, a tough military man, who shaped young Shaq into the disciplined force he would one day become. Harrison ruled the household with the same discipline he applied in the military. Shaq was taught respect, obedience, and most importantly, focus. But in a neighborhood where many kids fell into gangs and crime, Shaq found his escape in basketball. By the time he was a teenager, his size already made him impossible to ignore. Standing head and shoulders above his peers, coaches knew he was destined for something bigger. At 13, his family moved to a military base in Germany. It was here that Shaq's love for basketball deepened. Far from the temptations of Newark, he dedicated himself to the game. His massive frame, combined with surprising agility, made him unstoppable. When his family eventually returned to the United States, Shaq carried with him the discipline instilled by his stepfather and the hunger of a young man who wanted to rewrite his destiny. By the time Shaq enrolled at Louisiana State University (LSU), the world had already begun to notice. He wasn't just another tall player. He was a force of nature. His dominance on the court brought national attention, and soon, NBA scouts circled like hawks. And then came 1992, the year everything changed. At just 20 years old, Shaquille O'Neal entered the NBA draft. He was the #1 overall pick, selected by the Orlando Magic. The rookie contract they offered him was jaw-dropping, $40 million, spread across 7 years. For a kid who once lived in military housing and hand-me-down clothes, this was life-changing. But here's the twist: while most young athletes would have drowned in luxury cars, jewelry, and reckless spending, Shaq's stepfather's voice echoed in his head: discipline, respect, focus. Instead of seeing the money as an end, Shaq saw it as the beginning. That first contract wasn't just a paycheck. It was a foundation, a chance to build something far bigger than basketball. And Shaq knew something that most of his peers didn't. The game wouldn't last forever. Even as a rookie, he began studying other athletes and businessmen, taking mental notes of who went broke and who built lasting wealth. That $40 million deal became his first lesson in financial stewardship, a stepping stone toward the empire he would later build. But before the restaurants, gyms, car washes, and movie deals came the pressure, the expectations, the eyes of the world waiting to see if this 20-year-old giant could live up to the hype. The stage was set, the contracts were signed, and Shaquille O'Neal was about to show the world that he wasn't just here to play the game, he was here to change it. Part 2, The Rise of a Giant. From LSU to NBA stardom. When Shaquille O'Neal left his teenage years behind, he wasn't just big, he was a phenomenon, towering at over 7 feet, weighing well above 300 pounds, and moving with the agility of a guard. Shaq was unlike anything basketball had ever seen. But raw size alone doesn't guarantee greatness. For every tall kid on the playground, there were thousands who never made it. Shaq still had to prove himself in college, on national TV, and eventually, against the most ruthless players in the NBA. This was where the legend of Shaquille O'Neal truly began. Louisiana State University, the birth of a beast. Shaq's path to greatness crystallized at Louisiana State University LSU. Recruited by Coach Dale Brown, the same man who first spotted him in Germany years earlier. Shaq arrived on campus in 1989, ready to dominate. From the moment he stepped onto the court, he was unstoppable. His size, combined with shocking speed and power, made him a nightmare for opponents. He shattered backboards, blocked shots into the stands, and dunked with a ferocity that electrified crowds. Fans didn't just watch Shaq play, they felt it. But behind the highlight reels, Shaq still struggled with the weight of expectations. He wasn't just playing for himself, he was playing for his mother, for his stepfather's discipline, for every kid in Newark who never got out. I knew I was blessed with this body, this talent, but I never wanted to waste it. Every game, I was proving to myself that I belonged. At LSU, Shaq was named two-time All-American, SEC Player of the Year, and even College Player of the Year in 1991. His dominance was so overwhelming that scouts said he was NBA ready long before his final season. The NBA Draft, a ticket to the future. By 1992, the NBA world was buzzing. Everyone wanted to know who would land Shaquille O'Neal. The answer came at the 1992 NBA Draft. The Orlando Magic held the first overall pick, and the decision was obvious. At just 20 years old, Shaq was selected number 1 overall, instantly becoming the face of a young franchise. The kid from Newark, once surrounded by crime, poverty, and broken dreams, was now stepping onto the biggest stage in basketball. And from day one, he was ready. Orlando Magic, a rookie like no other. Most rookies take time to adjust to the NBA, not Shaq. In his very first season, he averaged 23 points, 14 rebounds, and nearly 4 blocks per game. He was named the 1993 NBA Rookie of the Year, becoming only the second rookie ever voted as an All-Star starter. But stats don't capture the spectacle. Shaq didn't just play basketball, he changed it. He dunked with such force that he shattered 2 NBA backboards in his rookie year, sending shockwaves across the league. Crowds came not just to watch the Magic win, but to see Shaq perform. He was no longer just a player, he was an event. I wanted to dominate, not just play, dominate. When you saw Shaq on the floor, you were gonna remember it. Yet with success came challenges. Fame, money, and pressure. Shaq was only 20. But he was now a millionaire, a celebrity, and the cornerstone of an NBA franchise. He was signing endorsement deals, appearing in commercials, and becoming a cultural icon overnight. For many athletes, this sudden wealth and fame would be overwhelming. But Shaq never forgot the lessons from his stepfather. He sent money home. He stayed grounded in discipline, and most importantly, he kept working. Still, critics doubted him. They said he was too playful, that he wasn't serious enough, that his dominance was only physical. Could Shaq really turn raw power into championships? Shaq answered the only way he knew how, by getting even better. The playoff battles was in just his second season. Shaq led the Orlando Magic to their first winning record in franchise history. By 1995, only 3 years into his career, he had carried the team all the way to the NBA Finals. The world watched as this young giant went head-to-head with Hakeem Olajuwon and the Houston Rockets. Hack was powerful, but Olajuwon's experience proved too much. The Magic were swept to the world. It was a failure. To Shaq, it was fuel. Losing hurt. But it showed me what greatness really takes. You can't just be big. You gotta be smart, disciplined, relentless. This loss would ignite a fire that would carry Shaq into the next phase of his career, one that would cement him as one of the greatest ever. The confetti falls, but it's not for him. It's for the other team. The crowd cheers, but Shaq feels nothing but silence. In his mind, the echoes of his stepfather's voice return: discipline, respect, hard work. He realizes that this is just the beginning. He's tasted the finals. Now he wants the crown. And in part 3, Shaq's journey will take him from disappointment in Orlando to the bright lights of Los Angeles, where he'll form one of the most legendary dynasties the NBA has ever seen.
Tonight, the debut of perhaps the most heralded rookie in the NBA in quite some time, number 32, Shaquille O'Neal. O'Neal rejects and Sally kicks it out of bounds. Gorgiani wrap around the royal miss. O'Neal did right.
Part 3, the Hollywood era, building a dynasty with the Lakers. Shaquille O'Neal was already a superstar in Orlando. Rookie of the Year, multiple-time All-Star, and NBA Finals appearance. But for all his dominance, there was something missing: a championship ring. And in the NBA, talent alone doesn't guarantee greatness. To cement your legacy, you need the one thing every player dreams of: titles. Shaq knew it, the critics knew it, and the pressure was mounting. By 1996, after 4 seasons in Orlando, tensions began to rise. The Magic had become a playoff team, but chemistry issues, front office drama, and questions about Shaq's long-term commitment created uncertainty. When his contract expired, the basketball world held its breath. Where would the most dominant center in the game go? The decision: leaving Orlando for Los Angeles. In the summer of 1996, Shaq made the choice that would change NBA history forever. He signed a 7-year, $121 million contract with the Los Angeles Lakers, the largest in NBA history at the time. The move shocked fans. Orlando begging to stay. But Shaq had bigger dreams. Hollywood offered not only basketball glory, but also global stardom. Movies, endorsements, music, entertainment. It was the perfect stage for a man larger than life. And just as Shaq arrived, so did a young rookie by the name of Kobe Bryant. At just 17 years old, Kobe was fearless, hungry, and determined to prove himself. Together, the stage was set for one of the most iconic and complicated partnerships in sports history. Shaq and Kobe, a partnership of fire and ice. From the start, it was clear Shaq and Kobe were destined for greatness, but also for conflict. Shaq, the dominant veteran, wanted discipline and respect. Kobe, the prodigy, wanted to take over, to challenge, to win his way. Their personalities clashed, yet on the court, their combination was unstoppable. Shaq's sheer power in the paint paired with Kobe's finesse on the perimeter created a duel that defenders simply couldn't handle. Still, the question lingered: could they put aside egos long enough to win? For 3 seasons, the Lakers fell short. Playoff exits, locker room drama, and a revolving door of coaches made fans wonder if this experiment would ever work. But in 1999, a coaching legend entered the picture: Phil Jackson. The Zen master arrives. Phil Jackson, who had guided Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls to 6 championships, was hired as the Lakers head coach in 1999. His philosophy of balance, discipline, and team first play was exactly what Shaq and Kobe needed. Jackson knew that to unlock their full potential, he had to elevate Shaq to his absolute peak. He designed the offense around Shaq's dominance inside, the famous triangle offense, while giving Kobe space to shine as the ultimate closer. The result? Pure destruction. The three-peat dynasty 2000 to 2002. From 2000 to 2002, the Los Angeles Lakers ruled the NBA. 2000 NBA Finals, Shaq led the charge against the Indiana Pacers, averaging an insane 38 points and 16 rebounds per game. He was named Finals MVP, securing his first championship ring. 2001 NBA Finals. The Lakers went 15-1 in the playoffs, one of the most dominant runs in league history. Shaq again won Finals MVP, proving he was the most unstoppable force in basketball. 2002 NBA Finals. Facing the New Jersey Nets, Shaq completed the three-peat. Another Finals MVP. Another trophy. Another statement. The Lakers were a dynasty. Shaq was at the absolute peak of his powers. For 3 years, no one on earth could stop him. He wasn't just playing basketball, he was redefining it. I wanted to be the most dominant ever. Not the best, not the greatest scorer. The most dominant. When I stepped on the floor, I wanted to make grown men quit, and he did, night after night, beyond the court. Shaq the Entertainer. Los Angeles wasn't just about basketball. It was about brand. Shaq recorded rap albums, starred in movies, and became a pop culture icon. Kids wore his jerseys, companies lined up for endorsements, and his personality made him one of the most recognizable athletes in the world. But with fame came friction. The Shaq-Kobe rivalry, always simmering, began to boil over. Shaq criticized Kobe for being selfish. Kobe criticized Shaq for being out of shape. The media fanned the flames, and soon, their feud was as famous as their championships. Still, as long as they kept winning, the dynasty held together. But cracks were forming, and by 2003, the empire was ready to collapse. The beginning of the end. In 2003 and 2004, injuries, egos, and locker room tension took their toll. The Lakers still reached the finals in 2004, but fell to the Detroit Pistons in a stunning upset. The loss shattered the team. The feud between Shaq and Kobe had reached a breaking point. Management faced a choice: keep Shaq, now in his 30s, or build the future around the younger Kobe Bryant. The decision was made. In the summer of 2004, Shaquille O'Neal was traded to the Miami Heat. For the first time in years, Shaq was leaving the biggest stage in basketball. The dynasty was over. The Shaq-Kobe era had ended in both triumph and chaos. The confetti falls again, but once more, not for him. Across the room, Kobe sits in silence, the tension between them like a wall. The dynasty they built together is gone. Shaq picks up his bag, his eyes burning with determination. He may be leaving Los Angeles, but he's not done, not even close, because in Miami, another chapter is waiting, one that will prove that even without Kobe, even without Hollywood, Shaq can still rise to the top. Part 4: Redemption in Miami, the fourth ring and beyond. When Shaquille O'Neal left Los Angeles in 2004, the narrative was clear: his time was over. He was older, heavier, and critics said he could no longer carry a team. The Lakers had chosen Kobe. Shaq was supposed to fade away. But if there's one thing you should never do, it's doubt Shaquille O'Neal. Rival in Miami. That summer, Shaq was traded to the Miami Heat. The deal shocked the NBA. South Beach wasn't just getting a superstar, it was getting a man with a point to prove. The Heat already had a rising young star in Dwyane Wade, a fearless 22-year-old shooting guard who played with the kind of intensity that reminded Shaq of a young Kobe. Only this time, instead of clashing with his partner, Shaq embraced the role of mentor. At his introductory press conference in Miami, Shaq delivered one of his classic lines: "I'm here to bring a championship to Miami, nothing else." The city erupted. The duo, Shaq and Wade, on the court. The chemistry was instant. Shaq dominated inside, drawing defenders and creating space. Wade attacked relentlessly, slashing to the basket, hitting clutch shots, and soaking up the wisdom of the Big Diesel. The Heat surged to the top of the Eastern Conference. Shaq finished the 2004-05 season as runner-up in the MVP race, proving he wasn't finished yet. The Heat reached the Eastern Conference Finals, but fell just short, losing to the Detroit Pistons in a brutal 7-game series. For Shaq, it was fuel. He had one mission left, a fourth ring, the 2006 NBA championship. The very next season, Shaq and the Heat came back with vengeance. Dwyane Wade took another leap, blossoming into one of the league's brightest stars, and in the 2006 NBA Finals, facing the Dallas Mavericks, the stage was set. Dallas jumped out to a 2-0 series lead, but critics said it was over. Shaq was too old, Wade was too young, Miami didn't have the firepower. But then, something extraordinary happened. Dwyane Wade exploded for one of the greatest finals performances in history, averaging 34.7 points per game. Shaq, though no longer the primary scorer, anchored the defense, drew double teams, and provided the leadership Miami needed. The Heat won 4 straight games. The impossible became reality. Shaq had delivered on his promise. Miami Heat minus 2006 NBA champions for Shaquille O'Neal. It was vindication. He had proven he could win without Kobe. He had silenced the doubters. And with that 4th championship, his place among the legends of the game was undeniable. The Twilight Years journeyman giant. After the 2006 title, Shaq's body began to betray him. Injuries, age, and years of pounding in the paint took their toll, but Shaq wasn't ready to quit. He loved the game too much, so he kept moving. Phoenix Suns 2008 to 2009. Shaq joined Steve Nash in the high-speed Suns offense. Though the fit was awkward, Shaq still averaged strong numbers, and even won All-Star Game MVP in 2009. Cleveland Cavaliers 2009-2010. Shaq teamed up with LeBron James in an attempt to capture another title. The dream was short-lived. The Cavs fell in the playoffs. Boston Celtics 2010-2011. In his final season, Shaq joined the Celtics, hoping to squeeze one last championship run, but injuries kept him sidelined, and in 2011, after 19 seasons, Shaq officially retired. When he announced it, he did it in true Shaq fashion, casually on social media. With a simple video, "We did it, 19 years baby, I'm out, I'm retiring." Just like that, the big diesel had parked his engine for the last time. Life after basketball. The businessman Shaq. For most athletes, retirement means disappearing from the spotlight, not Shaq. In many ways, his second career became even more legendary. Shaq invested wisely, becoming one of the most financially successful athletes in history. From fast food franchises to tech companies, from real estate to esports, Shaq built a business empire worth hundreds of millions. He also thrived as a television personality, joining TNT's Inside the NBA, where his humor, insight, and larger-than-life personality made him a fan favorite. And true to his word, Shaq kept chasing education. He earned his bachelor's degree, then a master's, and eventually even a doctorate in education. The kid who once struggled with school had become Dr. Shaquille O'Neal, the legacy of a giant. By the time Shaq retired, his numbers spoke for themselves. 4 NBA champion, 15 All-Star MVP, 2003 Finals MVP, over 28,000 points and 13,000 rebounds. But beyond the stats, Shaq's true legacy was impact. He wasn't just a basketball player. He was an entertainer, a brand, a businessman, a philanthropist. He donated millions to charities, helped fund scholarships, and built basketball courts for kids who, like him, grew up with nothing. He never forgot where he came from. From a poor military kid in Newark, raised by a strict stepfather, to an NBA icon, a global superstar, and a successful businessman. He didn't just play the game. He changed it, and yet there was always one question left hanging in the air. What if the Shaq-Kobe dynasty had stayed together? Could they have won more? Could they have been the greatest duo in sports history? It's a question that will never be answered. But one thing is certain, Shaquille O'Neal's story is a testament to resilience, reinvention, and the power of dreaming big. Part 5: The Legacy. More than a game, a legend beyond the court. By the time Shaquille O'Neal hung up his sneakers in 2011, he wasn't just a retired basketball player. He was an institution, a global brand, a household name. Most athletes leave behind statistics. Shaq left behind a phenomenon. His 4 NBA championships, 3 Finals MVPs, and 1 regular season MVP only told half the story. The other half, his charisma, his humor, his larger-than-life persona that made him beloved far beyond basketball arenas. But what truly cements his legacy isn't just what he achieved on the court, it's what he built after basketball. Shaq, the business empire. Shaq knew early on that NBA money wouldn't last forever. Growing up in poverty had taught him one thing: if you don't manage your money, it will disappear. So he studied business. He listened to mentors, and when retirement came, he was ready. Franchises. Shaq invested in Papa John's, Auntie Anne's, Krispy Kreme, and Five Guys. He didn't just buy one store, he bought dozens. Tech. Early on, Shaq invested in Google, a decision that turned into one of his smartest financial moves. Entertainment. From movies like Blue Chips and Kazam, to rap albums, to commercials, Shaq built himself into a cultural icon. Media. His role on TNT's Inside the NBA turned him into a television star, where his jokes, clashes with Charles Barkley, and insights kept him relevant with younger fans. Sports and real estate. Shaq became a player in emerging industries, diversifying his empire. Today, Shaq's net worth sits in the hundreds of millions, a fortune he created through discipline, diversification, and the same hunger that drove him as a kid in Newark. The gentle giant, Shaquille O'Neal, may have been a force of destruction on the court, but off it, he became known as a gentle giant. Stories of Shaq's kindness are everywhere. He has quietly paid for strangers' engagement rings, bought groceries for struggling families, donated millions to schools, and even walked into furniture stores to pay off people's layaway balances without telling the media. When asked why, his answer is always simple: when you come from nothing, you never forget the people still in that situation. That humility, despite all his wealth and fame, is what makes Shaq more than an athlete. It makes him human. Education and reinvention. Shaq promised his parents he would finish his education. Not only did he get his bachelor's degree, he went further, a master's in business administration, a doctorate in education from Barry University. He wanted to show kids who looked up to him that education mattered. He wanted to prove that even a man who once struggled with books could thrive in the classroom. This wasn't for headlines, it was for legacy, the Hall of Fame, and immortality. In 2016, Shaquille O'Neal was inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. As he stood there in Springfield, Massachusetts, surrounded by legends, he thanked his stepfather, Sergeant Philip Harrison, the man who pushed him relentlessly as a child. Without that discipline, Shaq admitted, there would be no championships, no NBA career, no empire, and in that moment, everything came full circle. The boy from Newark, once mocked for his size, was now immortalized among the greatest to ever play the game. Global impact. Shaq's influence stretches beyond the United States. In China, he became a beloved NBA ambassador, connecting with millions of fans. In Africa, his philanthropy and basketball outreach inspired countless young athletes. Online, Shaq transformed into a meme machine, staying relevant with Gen Z through humor, TikTok, and viral content. And like many legends who fade into obscurity, Shaq reinvented himself again and again. Each generation has its version of Shaq: the dominant Laker, the funny commentator, the businessman, the humanitarian, the shadow of what if. But no story is complete without the shadows. Shaq's feud with Kobe Bryant still lingers in basketball debates. Could they have won 7, 8, maybe even 10 championships if they had stayed together? Some say Shaq lacked the discipline to stay in shape, costing the Lakers a dynasty. Others argue that Kobe's ego was equally to blame. The truth, we'll never know. But that mystery, that what if, is part of what keeps Shaq's story alive in conversations. It's the tension that makes his career not just great, but legendary. Why Shaq still inspires. Shaquille O'Neal's story is more than basketball. It's about reinvention, resilience, and the power of dreaming big. He showed the world that you can grow up poor and still become rich, that you can be doubted and still prove them wrong, that you can be laughed at and still laugh last. From Newark's projects to NBA championships, from a military kid to a global mogul, from a class clown to Dr. Shaquille O'Neal, Shaq is living proof that no matter where you start, Greatness is possible if you embrace the grind, stay humble, and never stop evolving. Instead of basketball, images flash of his businesses, his philanthropy, his doctorate, his laughter on TV. The arena erupts. Because the truth is, Shaquille O'Neal was never just a basketball player. He was, and is, a force of nature. And as the lights fade, one question lingers, a question for you. The audience: was Shaq the most dominant player in basketball history, or the most influential giant the sport has ever seen? Let's discuss in the comments section.